because you worry about smell, you worry that people will notice, you worry that it'll leak too much. When you've got fecal incontinence as well, when you've got fecal incontinence is a whole different ball game. Then it becomes really about sanitation and smell and worrying, and it's awful for people. But there is hope out there for everybody, and that's the biggest thing I think I like to bring to the equation is that, and what most of my clients say after speaking to me is that, oh my goodness, I feel much happier, because there's things I can do like proactively to make differences.
Then. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Soulmates and Suitcases. My name is Lisa Brierley, and my amazing husband beside me, or at least on the screen, my husband Scott Brierley. And if you are new to Soulmates and Suitcases, our podcast is a place where we have honest conversations about healing and growth, relationships, resilience, and of course, all those stories that shape us. And you can find us pretty much anywhere and everywhere, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and the newest platform is True Fans FM or .fm. We do have a special guest here today. I'm very happy to welcome Abby Lord. Welcome, Abby.
Hi, everyone. Nice to be here.
Great to have you here. I'll tell a little bit about you and then we'll dive right in. So Abby is the founder of the Abby Method. So we'll dive into that as well. Her connection to Hypopressives Scotland, and she is a founding member of the IHC, which is the International Hypopressive Council, and the UK branch as well. Now, if you're not sure on any of those things, what that's about, we'll be looking at mostly women, I believe, but women and men, and looking at their pelvic floor. We've all heard of this sort of, seems to be more in the media, and get a little better understanding with Abby about how we are looking at our own bodies and connecting with our own bodies. So welcome, Abby, and maybe you can start by telling us a little bit about yourself and your journey to where you are today.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me, both of you as well here. And I'm always very keen to talk about pelvic health and women's health and men's health too, because that's also equally important. I am a mum of two teenage boys now, and I live on the east coast of Scotland. I've always lived on the east coast of Scotland. I've travelled the world a bit, but I've always ended up back here. I came to doing this because it happened to me. So I had three prolapses after the birth of my children. So I had a bladder prolapse, a uterine prolapse, and a rectocele. And we'll talk a little bit more about them in a moment, and what that means. And I was told to do the standard squeezies that you're told, and we can bump into a little bit more too, Kegels. And they didn't work at all. They just made everything much, much worse. So there was the offer of surgery. And so I looked at surgery, and it has a really short shelf life for most people. And I was only like early 40s. So I was like, this is not something I want to do. So I thought, well, if you can heal a broken back and you can heal a broken arm and you can heal all these other things, perhaps there are things that we can do for our pelvic floor too. So that's when I discovered hypopressives. And I couldn't really learn them in the UK. So I went to Spain to learn. So that was a journey in itself. But prior to all of this, I taught drama at high school. So I taught high school drama. And prior to that, I ran pubs and restaurants in Edinburgh, in the capital city of Scotland. I worked in bars and kitchens and floor managed and did all of that sort of stuff before that. And before that, I taught kids ballet. So I've kind of come in a really weird route back to, bodies. I don't know how. So yeah, that's a bit about me.
Excellent, excellent. Do you know, and this is kind of jumping forward maybe, but in your part of the world versus, say, our part of the world, in regards to our topic today, is there a difference? Like, have you focused mainly in the UK area in terms of information and how to support women, or is this in general all around the world?
So the hypopressives is all around the world now, but with America and Canada and all of the kind of North America kind of area, you've got some really great people out there like Lauren O'Hyan that talks about breath work and talks about body stuff, but she's more from a yoga point of view. You've got the Buff Muff method. She also uses hypopressives as part of hers. And my colleague Trista Zinn, who's in Canada, and she's Hypopressives Canada. So she's part of the IHC as well, but in Canada.
Okay.
So there are different practitioners, but I think the leaning these days has been away from surgery and kind of for the majority of people, away from invasive methods and into looking at how we can use our body and its innate wisdom and balance to help at least manage symptoms, if not heal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that to me that's the ideal or the better way to go is to be able to look at it that way. Um, are you finding people who come to work with you, have they had multiple births? Have they had C-sections? Have they like who's coming to you, I guess?
So it's a really wide mixture. I get women, and I'll come back to men as well because I also get men. I get women who come to see me because they've had a prolapse after birth. Sometimes it can be after multiple births. Sometimes it can be after the first birth. Usually it's to do with birth trauma in that case. In the UK, we use the ventouse cap, which is like a suction cap if the baby gets a bit stuck. We also use forceps. And forceps are like the worst thing that can happen to a woman's pelvic floor because they tend to grab the baby and then twist and pull. And it tends to happen after they've had an epidural. So the woman can no longer feel what's going on. So her body can't help to support the movement of the baby as it comes out. And that tends to be where we get tearing, pulling of the bladder, and all sorts of other injuries that come along with forceps delivery. In some parts of the world, forceps are not used anymore. So I believe in Sweden now they've been relegated to the museums because it's a pretty brutal way of delivering a baby.
It is. It
My
is.
first was forceps.
Oh,
It was a whole journey of forceps. So yeah, so I get women who come for birth trauma, and then I get other women who come after a C-section. So they think that because they had a C-section that they're going to have no issues. But you have carried a baby for 9 months, sometimes close to 10 months before the C-section. And a C-section creates its own weaknesses because we have scar tissue that goes through our fascia layers. And this can create imbalances between, lots of women with C-sections, they very much say, I feel like me from up here, and then I have the shelf, and then I don't really feel like me from below. So yeah, C-sections. But I also get a lot of women who come who have done high impact activity in sports. I get people who've come because they've had extreme grief and then they suddenly found they have a prolapse. So it's to do with the way we hold tension in our bodies and our breathing is really, really key to managing our pelvic health. And guys, I get guys because they've had prostate surgery. I have guys because they've had pudendal nerve issues because they're like weekend warrior cyclists. So they put pressure on their pudendal nerve, and that creates issues with their pelvic floor. Yeah. So
there's
lots of different people.
yeah
Yeah.
that come to
Yeah.
you. I
That's all
do
good.
I do really want to get to the understanding, the scientific understanding of prolapse.
Okay, so prolapse. Lots of people feel when a woman comes to see me first, and guys I've had guys who have a rectal prolapse. So we'll talk through all the different prolapses first, and then we'll talk about why they can happen and what we can do to manage them. So we have, first of all, we have a bladder prolapse, also called a cystocele. And this is where the bladder pushes into the front wall of the vagina and pushes down through into the vaginal space or opening. So it actually starts to, if we imagine we've got our vagina, I should have got a tube of some sort. So we got our vagina, but it's actually, it pushes into the front wall. So it's like almost like it's falling backwards. So away from your pubic bone towards your vagina. And we can have different stages of prolapse. We can have just a little bulge, which is like a stage 1. A stage 2 is when it comes a little bit lower. A stage 3 is where it's just at the labia, so you can see it. And a stage 4 is when it's out. So
Okay.
people can have, but it's not the bladder's not out. The vagina wall comes out. The bladder's pushing the vagina wall out, so it comes out like a little ball.
And how is that determined, the levels?
So the levels are determined. Lots of people determine them differently, but is generally one is a tiny amount. Two is you can't see it from the vaginal opening. You know, you could feel it. Out three, you can see it, and a four, it's generally most of the time outside the labia.
And maybe I need to ask a better question. How is it detected? How do they know?
Oh, so
What
most women notice that it feels heavy. They might see a bulge when they look. They might feel a bulge when they wipe. They might feel a bulge when they are in the shower, when they're washing. They might also, when they put a tampon in, if they're using a tampon or a moon cup, they might feel it's pushed straight back out again. So that's generally some of the first ways they notice that they have a bladder prolapse.
Okay.
We also have a rectocele, which is where the rectum pushes in from the posterior wall. So if you imagine this is our vagina here, the bladder pushes in from the front wall, but the rectum can push in from the back wall. And this creates a pocket. And what can happen here is that the excrement can get stuck in the pocket. So a woman has to do something called splinting, where she pushes with her fingers. You get objects to use as well. You push with your fingers to push the pocket back over so you can go to the toilet. So
Oh,
this causes a lot of issues with constipation. There's so many issues that go along with rectocele. They're quite frightening for a lot of women. And they generally notice it because they can't go to the toilet, the bulge gets hard, and then they start Googling, and find out all the scary information.
Now, would
So
this
those are
just be for women? Oh, sorry
Yeah,
for
so
interrupting,
these
but
two are just for women. And the next one's just for women, but then one afterwards is for all of us. So then we've
okay.
also got a uterine prolapse, which is where the uterus comes through the vaginal canal. So it comes down, and you notice that because it feels different. It feels almost like a donut. The shape of the cervix feels a bit like a donut. So women again will feel this because the tampon won't stay in. They might feel a dragging sensation, a heaviness, a pain at the end of a day, beginning of a day when they've been on their feet for a while. So those are the three that are kind of women generally only. And then we have rectal prolapse. So this is where the rectum comes out through the colon comes out through the rectum. So we have the mucosa coming out through the rectum, and generally that after you go to the toilet, you have to push that back up again gently. So there's even more than that, but they're the main ones. And it's good that we're talking about this because a lot of women and men this happens to, and they think they are the only ones. But when it comes to women's stuff, it's 1 in 4. It's 1 in 4 until you're about 40, and then it becomes 1 in 3, and then it becomes 2 in 4 when we come past menopause. So it's about 50% of the population is experiencing some sort of pelvic floor dysfunction when you come to menopause. With guys, it's generally the rectal prolapse is generally tends to happen if you're really hypermobile. So really mobile tissue tends to be the most. They're the guys that found me the most for that sort of thing. Yeah.
and so
So
it,
with that shocker,
yeah, that's a lot.
Joey,
That's a lot.
it's a lot for people to take in.
Yeah, that's for sure. And like, what is going on with me? Like, oh my goodness. And it's kind of sounding like this is an age thing in regards to it's about aging, or is there
Not
no
necessarily. Not necessarily. It's to do with lots of different things. The more high impact activity that you do, if you're not managing the way you balance your pressure in your body, the more likely you are to have a prolapse. So things like um, men who heavy lift, women who heavy lift, um, high impact sports like gymnastics, hugely prevalent in gymnastics. Beach volleyball's got a really high prevalence of nocturia, which is where you need to get up multiple times during the night. So sports like high, like professional sports have a lot of issues as well. So it's age, it's connective tissue type. So people who are more hypermobile are more likely to have issues earlier on as well, rather than just being something to do with aging. That again could be managing pressure. So say we've got a runner who loves going running, but perhaps she's not got quite the right form or her breathing's a bit out. Perhaps she paradoxically breathes. Talk about that in a minute. Then there's a good chance that she will also be experiencing leaking, and she doesn't understand why she's experiencing leaking because she's not had a baby, and she doesn't, So there are lots of different reasons, but age is definitely a thing as well.
Okay. And so what is paradoxical breathing?
So there are different we recruit our bodies in different ways to breathe. So I'm going to get you guys to take a moment and I'd like you just to think about the way that you breathe. So I'm going to ask you just a couple of questions. You're going to breathe, just bring your awareness to your breath.
Yeah.
Now I want you first to notice whether you're inhaling through your nose or your mouth.
When you asked, I inhaled through my nose, but I think
Okay.
I do through my mouth a lot.
Yeah,
I,
so
I, I generally through my nose.
through nose. So the best place for us to inhale through is definitely through our nose. Now, the next question I always ask people is where they exhale from. And the best way is to exhale through our nose. But if you carry tension in your jaw, like if you grind your teeth or you're somebody who grips with your jaw, then this creates tension in your pelvic floor. So, what I ask people to do when we first start working together is inhaling through their nose and exhaling through a relaxed jaw. There has been a study done that they did 15 minutes of manual manipulation of tense jaws, and it brought a 52.94% increase in activity in the pelvic floor. So the pelvic floor became more active, which means it was less tense and less stressed because they relaxed the jaw. So it's huge. So
That is
one of
huge.
the huge takeaway is if you've got issues with your pelvic floor, check your jaw first. So that's the first thing. Next, when you breathe and take, just your normal breathing, what do you feel moving the most? Do you feel your upper chest, your abdominals, your belly, your rib cage? What moves the most?
I would say my belly.
Okay.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Okay, and so noticing, just doing another couple of breaths, do you notice your rib cage moving at all?
Maybe a little bit.
A little
Yeah.
bit.
A little bit. So, where are your lungs?
Yes, I know. In the rib cage.
So, most people, there's three types of kind of dysfunctional breathing. The first one is upper chest breathing, where we breathe into our upper chest, which is quite common after pregnancy because the rib cage has been pushed forwards, there's been nowhere to breathe. So quite often women get stuck here, and men quite often with high stress jobs get stuck up here too. So upper chest breathing. And that's when they tend to use their accessory breathing muscles, their scalenes, and this breeds anxiety. It's quite a shallow breath, it breeds anxiety. And it's really bad for the pelvic floor because we're not really engaging the pelvic floor in our breath at all. And our pelvic floor is part of our breathing canister. So if we're just breathing up here, we're kind of ignoring our pelvic floor. And our pelvic floor's like, oh God, when's she gonna like breathe with me? You know? Then we've got the belly breathing. So the one that we're taught quite often which is diaphragmatic breathing. And I do this, the little kind of umlauts around it, because everything is diaphragmatic breathing. If we didn't breathe with our diaphragm, we'd kind of be dead. So even upper chest shallow breathing is using our diaphragm a little bit. So when we belly breathe, we're taught to belly breathe. We're taught to inhale, our lungs inflate and our belly pushes out towards the front. And then as we exhale, our belly comes back in again. And we kind of don't really use our rib cage at all. But there isn't actually a single group of muscles that are designed in our belly that are designed to just open to the front. Our big transverse muscle wraps all the way around. So it's developed to open like a corset, opening and closing, front, sides, and back. Your obliques, which are the other muscles that come up and down the sides, they're designed to slide up and down like this in a diagonal, not out towards the front. So they're designed to have a little bit of expansion to the front, but in combination with the up and down. And then you've got a big muscle here, your rectus abdominis, that's the six-pack muscle that goes from your rib cage to your pubic bone, and it's designed to move this way, up and down. So it's also not designed to push out in front. So they're designed to work in combination with the rib cage, which is where your lungs are. So if we widen our rib cage a little bit, even a little bit as we breathe, then those muscles that I've just talked about, they're all attached to the ribs. So as we widen our rib cage, our abdominals should expand. And this is to create space for us to manage the pressure of breathing. Now, if we just breathe into our belly, we're putting all that pressure from the breath straight out to one weak point, or possibly down towards our pelvic floor if that's the weakest point. Also, if we just breathe out into our belly, quite often we start to get low back pain because our back is having to take the pressure of you pushing out in front and having to maintain kind of it's doing the job of the abdominals as well. So that's two of them. And the third one is, I know, paradoxical breathing, which a lot of my runners have. And it's quite hard to, it's kind of cultural and it's kind of tends to be more women. So try it out. As you inhale, I'd like you to draw your abdominals in the way. And as you exhale, I'd like you just to allow them to let go a little.
Okay.
So paradoxical breathing is that. Instead of allowing our bodies to widen on the inhale to help create space to manage pressure, paradoxical breathing is like having a toothpaste tube. And every time you inhale, the pressure's pushing down and you squeeze.
Okay.
So you're just squeezing a phenomenal amount of pressure down the way. And quite a lot of my runners have this mistiming, you know, so it's all right for a bit, but then once they've been running for a while, their pelvic floor is going, oh no, I can't do this anymore. She's just squeezing and squeezing and squeezing. And then they leak later on in the run or when they run downhill. So those are kind of the not great ways to manage pressure. So let's do the proper way together, all of us together.
Yes. Yes.
So what we're going to do is as you inhale, you're thinking your lungs are filling with air. As your lungs fill with air, I'd like you to allow your ribcage to widen, like it's a basket widening or a vase widening, to allow the air to come in and to expand. So we're managing the pressure of the breath. Then at almost the same time, I'd like you to allow your abdominal wall to widen as well. So your ribs are widening, your abdominals are widening. And this is to help manage the pressure as the pressure pushes down. So lungs create more pressure. The abdominal viscera then gets pushed down. And the abdominal viscera gets pushed down towards the pelvic viscera, the pelvic organs, and the pelvic organs to create space. Our pelvis tilts forwards just a tiny, tiny bit, like 0.5 mil. Our pubic bone moves away from our rib cage, and that allows more space for the abdominal viscera, and it allows our pelvic floor to actively lengthen on an inhale and then release on an exhale. Wow. So it means that if we're breathing well, Lisa and Scott,
yes,
then you're exercising your pelvic floor every time you take a breath.
Oh, okay. I understand. It takes a lot of concentration to do that.
To start with, because we get in these habitual patterns that life throws at us. But if I look at my 13-year-old and 15-year-old, they're still breathing like that. They're not doing anything weird yet, like belly breathing or upper chest breathing, because society, they've not had to sit at a desk or sit in a car for long periods of time where their posture has changed. It's made it difficult for them to do this breath. And it's different from the way babies breathe, because a lot of time yoga teachers will say, breathe like a baby, babies breathe into their bellies. But babies, the shape of babies is different. They've not started to get their spinal curves yet. Their lungs aren't in quite the same position. We change as we come to being standing beings. And so our breath has to become more central.
So
that was such a quick synopsis. Wow. I hope that made sense.
It made a lot of sense. That was really good. I'm thinking of all those runners out there or those high, aerobic impact people who are doing these high intense things and going, are you telling me I can't do that anymore?
Yeah, no, they're better to learn to manage the pressure in their body, because then what happens is they dissipate. So if your pelvis is doing its little tilt, if it's moving and if your whole body's moving, it helps to absorb ground force better. So everything in our body is basically about absorbing ground force. So if we have a really flexible and manageable, if our pelvis is really mobile, our pelvic floor is really mobile, it acts as our force absorption for the rest of our body. And all of this is all, so if we are bracing when we land, say, for example, we hold our breath as we land, then what happens is instead of the ground force coming up to meet a kind of soft sponge-like area that's ready to give, it meets rock. So it's like taking your hands and going, that really hurts. And then, oh, I've got a sock here. And instead of having, a dampening. So what the breath does and that movement in the pelvis does is gives us this dampening to help absorb ground force and make movement easier.
Okay, okay. So it's a like you were mentioning before, a holistic way of having the body work better for you.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
And with whatever. I know, like for myself, I had a C-section 28 years ago, and it feels like now at the age of 53, things are starting to go, oh, you had a C-section, didn't you? Maybe you need to concentrate or focus on something here because I feel like sometimes it's bladder pressure for myself. The only way I can describe it. And I've had doctors look at it and they don't see any issues, they don't see any problems, but it seems to come up. And they've talked about doing the Kegels. They
Here's a
didn't know.
quick pause in the conversation to invite you to join our Facebook community, Soulmates and Suitcases podcast. Tell your story, amplify your voice, where we share upcoming guests, new episodes, and conversations from the podcast. And you can catch all episodes on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Be sure to follow and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Now back to the show.
Didn't know anything about breath work or anything like that in regards to breathing. But I said one thing I actually noticed, because I think you kind of mentioned this, tension in the body. And I said, I'm actually learning to release my, I don't know, bladder area and not keep it tense. And I
Yeah.
think this is just a pattern I've learned over my life, whatever it is, dealing with life in general or whatever expectations. And so literally going, let it go, like is like a new thing for me.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. Follow that instinct. The more you can avoid tension in the pelvis, in your rib cage, in your whole body, the better. It's the more movement we can all get into our pelvises, the better. The more stagnant your pelvis becomes. So if you start to, for example, Lisa or Scott as well, if you start to think, oh, I've got an issue with my pelvis, oh no, I better not move it. I might make it worse. If you keep your pelvis really still, the more still you keep it, the drier the fascia, the connective tissue that surrounds all the organs in your pelvis becomes. The drier the tissue, the more you'll notice your symptoms, the more you'll have pain, the less force absorption you'll get, and the greater the issue will become. So even just moving your pelvis, even just tilting it forwards and backwards, side to side, doing a figure of eight with it, just getting some movement into the actual pelvis is one of the most amazing things you can do for your body. Most people get the fear. Scott, sorry.
That's okay. Like I mentioned earlier before we came online, that I suffered prostate cancer, and they gave me this mechanical sphincter, and the whole time they're insisting that I went 2 years without drinking coffee through
Yeah.
this whole process, and they're going. And then I finally started drinking coffee because nothing ever got better, and I really like coffee. And they're going, "Oh, the diuretic's making it worse," and it's like, no, it really isn't, because nothing's gotten worse since I started drinking it, and it's not getting any better. So, in your belief with stuff like that, worsen it or do anything, or
Food.
like a diuretic in general?
So yeah, lots of the bladder. When we're talking about the bladder hates any sort of irritation. Hates irritation from the inside and it hates irritation from the outside. But the thing is that if you're drinking your coffee, but you're also drinking enough water to dilute that as an irritant, then that's fine. That's not going to be such an issue. So I remember with my prolapse is an issue, and from lots of my clients, the first thing you're told to avoid is coffee, wine, beer, blackcurrant juice, strawberries, and I think it was tomatoes. Anything that causes some sort of irritation, so citrusy kind of thing. And they've basically taken the fun away straight away. So the thing is that if we've got a bladder that can fill appropriately, and we've got a flexible enough pelvis with enough movement in it, then we should be able to manage any of that. And I'm really not for saying you can't do this. I mean, I don't even say don't do Kegels. I say manage your Kegels. So it's more about what's most important to you and how you're going to manage it. If you find that drinking coffee doesn't make any difference, keep drinking coffee, but drink enough water so you dilute it to help your bladder out as well.
Now here, that lies the problem.
So again, with post operations for prostate cancer and things, it's really important for us to get lots of movement into your pelvis as well, and to get like tilting, moving in different directions, because we want to make sure that we get all the fascia, because again, the scar tissue there now. So we want to get all that scar tissue mobilized and moving again. So it's really important to keep it as mobile as possible. And the breath work, really focusing on the breathing and thinking about the ribcage widening, the abdominals widening, the pelvis widening, the pelvic floor lengthening, and then everything drawing back into the center on the exhale, is a really amazing way for you to start getting that engagement into the pelvis and improving your symptoms. I've had really good results with guys when using hypopressives, which is that breath that we've just talked about, plus a weird thing that we do as well, which I'll tell you about just now. But I've had half an army regiment. I've had 5 guys from the same regiment come to see me because they've had prostate issues, prostatectomies. And they weren't told that it was going to cause, it can cause erectile dysfunction, it can cause urinary incontinence, it can cause a whole heap of issues that you're not, as guys are kind of lied to about this. They're kind of told, oh, you'll have this operation and you'll all be grand. And they don't always tell you the kind of small print.
My doctor outright lied to me.
They did outright lie to you, yeah.
Yeah, so and when I called her on it, she goes, well, you wouldn't have had the surgery if I hadn't told you the truth. And it's like,
this is it.
Really? And she's right. I wouldn't have had the surgery.
Yeah. But this is it, is you're not given, but then where's your choice? I mean, it's the same as women having their choice taken away by being told that, if you have surgery, you're going to be grand. It's you're not told they're not told, oh, there's a 10-year lifespan to the surgery. If you look after yourself properly and change your posture and make sure you improve the balance of pressure in your body, they're not told that. They're not told, just as men aren't told. I mean, the guys that I've seen were not told. They're in their 50s and they were not, they were not told that basically, that's your sex life over, and, they went back to the doctors. The doctor's like, well, it might come back. There was nothing, they want to, what am I going to do? Men especially, more so than women in lots of ways, or especially I want a solution. Give me a solution. Give me an exercise to do. Give me something to do. So, it's a conversation that needs to be had much more because guys are much more embarrassed about it than women, but they also do their homework.
It almost killed me. Like I was ready to put a gun in my mouth. Yeah. And even now it's like the surgery they did it a year ago, and guess what? I'm leaking already.
Yeah. So for you, if you were my client, Scott, it would be about managing the pressure in your body. It'd be focusing on your breath work. And I'm going to talk through the breath as well, so you can have the strange thing we do. But I would recommend finding a trainer where you are and wherever you are and getting somebody to have a look at you and talk through it as well. Or come see me. I'm happy to come see me.
Can you see you online?
Yeah, you can see me online. Yeah, you can see me online too. So what we do in hypopressives is we do the breathing that I've just talked about, the full body breath. And we also do posture, so poses that help you to maintain good posture. We don't want tight posture. We want nice balanced posture where our pelvis is balanced underneath our rib cage, our head is on top of our shoulders, everything's pretty free to move, so we're not holding anything too static, but we're not pushing our rib cage forwards or we're not tipping our pelvis back. And then we do these 3 breaths. And at the end of the 3rd one, we pause. We hold the air out gently and we slowly widen our ribs with no air. And by widening our ribs, we create more volume and more space. So that allows our region underneath to shift and manage pressure. So in the old days, it was called reducing pressure on the pelvic floor. But we now know a bit more about fascia and connective tissue than we did 15 years ago. And so now we talk more about a reorganization of pressure. So if there's too much pressure down the way, Lisa's trying it. If there's too much pressure down the way, then what it does is it reorganizes the pressure to a better place. And and what a lot of women feel, and my guys feel as well, is they feel like almost like a lifting of their pelvic floor. But it's just the pressure shifting into a better position. So it's 3 breaths where you inhale and you use your rib cage. So you want a really nice mobile rib cage. You inhale, exhale, slowly exhale, inhale, exhale, pause, and then widen your rib cage with no air. And that widening, very nice, that widening your rib cage with no air is what's reorganizing the pressure. And it's not about forcing it. It's about doing everything really gently with your body. And that's the kind of key breathing in a synopsis for hypopressive breath work. But it's really good at like shifting pressure away from places that you don't want it.
Is that
something
breathing?
that I never
Oh, go ahead.
something that I never looked at before, but I seen this osteopath a few years ago, and I've had some major accidents. And
Yeah.
she goes, think about it. Your body, like all your organs, aren't even where they're supposed to be. And I never thought of that.
Yeah. And
So
that's
of
why this
course
is
it would,
yeah.
of course it would knock that out as well. So
I mean, that's why this is so good, because it helps you to reorganize it yourself. You could go to a visceral manipulator. So a visceral manipulator is somebody who manipulates your viscera, your organs from the outside of your body. They're really cool people. My best friend does it. She's amazing. But she's doing that manually for you, and then your body will revert to habits and patterns. And so it'll shift back. You have to go and see her again. And, the good thing about hypopressives is, and all the stuff that I do, is that you can do it yourself once you get taught it. You can go away and that's you. I'd love to see you again, but not for the same thing. I'd quite like you to go in, then have tools to manage your own healing. But yeah, again, visceral manipulation, all of these things combined for pelvic health is really good. And that might be something you want to look at too, Scott, is looking down that visceral manipulation point kind of avenue as well. There's Bowen specialists all over North America, and I think some in Thailand as well. But they do visceral manipulation. Alongside doing really good breath work, thinking about how your body's balanced, and really focused on that kind of not creating tension in your body, relaxing your jaw, all of this as well. There's loads of hope for you, Scott, out there. Don't put a gun in your mouth. Do you know what I mean? Come see us all first. Come see us all first.
I'm pretty good with it now, but
Good.
It terrifies me.
I know.
To return to what I was.
And this is where lots of men and women find themselves. I mean, I was working with a guy, and he had a rectal prolapse, and he just felt like, he's a footballer, and he just felt like he couldn't do what he wanted to do. And it's like it takes your whole kind of personality away and body, because it really is life limiting. And I think that's massively underplayed for a lot of people. It's just like, well, you just put a pad in. Guys get told that as well. Just put a pad in and get on with it,
Yeah.
But it's debilitating because you worry about smell. You worry that people will notice. You worry that it'll leak too much. You carry spare clothes with you. Do you mean it's a whole... And that's the bladder point of view. When you've got fecal incontinence as well, when you've got fecal incontinence is a whole different ballgame. Then it becomes really about sanitation and smell and worrying, and it's awful for people. But there is hope out there for everybody, and that's the biggest thing I think I like to bring to the equation, is that, and what most of my clients say after speaking to me is that, oh my goodness, I feel much happier, because it's, there's things I can do like proactively to make differences. Yeah.
That breath work that you had us practice, is that typically done standing, sitting?
It's done in lots of different postures. So we have sitting postures where we sit, and we use our arms as well, because your shoulder blades, your shoulders and your arms have a connection to your pelvis as well. So we don't want to hold tension there. We want to think about through our body, we've got fascia chains and muscle chains. And what we do in hypopressives, and in most of the work that I do, is we look at how they're connecting with each other. So we want to make sure that the rib cage is balanced properly. So a lot of women come to see me, and their rib cage is kind of, they've spent a long time like this. That if they're tall or if they've had kids, they always look down. So now their rib cage is in a really bad position. Their shoulders are curved in, their back line is all wrong, their anterior chain. I mean, if you just let your sternum drop in towards the center, you'll feel your abdominals, nothing's working anymore.
Yeah.
So now you've got no help for your bladder at the front. With guys tend to come to me and they're like, they've been told to pull the shoulders back. So they come in, they're really barrel chested, everything's pushed forwards. Yeah. So now we've got too much stretch down here. We've got really tight back muscles, and that relates to issues with their rectum as well. So, the breathing is like, if you imagine you're a house in a very basic way, the breathing is like the lift in the middle, the central lift that goes up and down. So we want that to work really well, almost like it's engaging the pelvic floor, coming away from the pelvic floor, engaging the pelvic floor, coming away from the pelvic floor. And then we want to use postures that engage all the muscles. So we have like one in a hip hinge, we have standing, we have rocking, we have quadruped, we have sitting. So we use the body in all the different functional ways we might use it in daily life. And it starts as like static postures. And then once people learn them with the breath, then we add movement to them. So then they become dynamic moving postures. It's just amazing. It's amazing. It's life-changing for so many women, and men. But I combine that, with the Abbey method, what I do is I combine that with everything else that I do. So I'm also a personal trainer, and I also do TRE, which is shaking therapy, which is phenomenal as well.
Share more about that. Yeah.
So I find lots of my men and women were coming to me, and they're traumatized by what was going on with their body. So totally traumatized. But the trauma probably didn't even start there. For some, it started with sexual abuse when they were younger, or a car accident, or a horse riding accident, or, something back there too. And I initially thought I'd go and become a transformational coach. I thought, I'm going to coach them through this. But then I realized that when they were talking about it, they were re-traumatizing themselves. So I found TRE by chance. I saw it on a podcast. I went, oh my goodness. And then I thought, I bet you the training's in London, which is miles away, because there's never any training in Scotland. And then it was just in the big city here. And I was like, oh this is amazing. And so it's shaking therapy. It's tremoring. So it's taking your body's own natural tremor to help release pent-up tension in your body. And it's amazing. So imagine you've just been in a near miss. You've just had an accident and you start tremoring. Or you're really angry. When you get really angry, you start to tremor. And people go, pull it together, stop tremoring. That's your body's innate response to the stress that's just happened to you. And in the animal kingdom, if we were an animal and we had been attacked by another animal, and then that animal had gone away, so the thing was over, the animals shake, they shake it all off, and they get on with their day, having dispensed all of that from their body. And so what TRE does is it gives us a really safe environment to let out any of that kind of pent up kind of nervous system stuff going on in our bodies. I guess if you imagine that you're a Coca-Cola bottle and you've been, over the years, you've been shaken up. I had that accident, that girlfriend split up with me, that boyfriend split up with me, that person was nasty to me. And then if we were just to take the lid off, it'd be like, totally overstimulated. So what we do is we teach people to start tremoring, and we let the top off a little bit, and we let a little bit of the fizz out, and then we close it and we teach them how to rest and self-regulate. So we teach self-regulation, a little bit of tremor, top back on again. So lots of people think shaking is like, oh, but for some people, most people, it's just a little tiny tremor inside their muscles. It's really gentle. And for some, it's a bit more, which is why we help guide to start with. But again, we guide, and then out in the world, you can do it yourself now. It's yours. It's yours to play with. Yeah.
Yeah,
Any
so many,
questions?
so many tools. Oh my gosh, so many tools like that we can use for sure.
Yeah.
I've never heard of that before. TRE. What does it stand for?
Trauma release exercises or tension release exercises, depending on who you talk to. So there's a guy called David Berceli, and he's the one who started the method I use. But it started years ago with medicine men, the Quakers. It's been around for centuries. It's just we were kind of taught to, close it all off. Be strong, don't show. Yeah.
Yeah, so
I love
yeah, go ahead.
I love the new shift in this world, how we're getting away from the 21st century medicine where the doctors go, take this pill, do this, do that. And because I've always thought my whole life, I remember having an ear infection when I was a kid that I kept going to the doctor and he'd prescribe this. And then I'd go back to the doctor and he'd prescribe that. And nothing worked. And then I went to a different doctor and he prescribed one thing and it went away.
Yeah.
And I know it's trial and elimination. However, it's like, do they really know what they're talking about?
Well, this is it. Because I remember when we had warts when we were kids, kids get warts all the time.
Yeah.
My grandma used to give us sixpence for them. She had sixpence. She'd give you a penny. So in old British money, it was a sixpence. And what she'd do is she would go, right, a sixpence for your warts. So she'd give you a sixpence and the next day it would be gone. Now, that's just weird. It's just, I mean, where's that come from? But it's a traditional way of dealing with things. Like it's really strange how it's like, but now, you get verruca stuff and wart stuff and really powerful chemicals. And all she did was give you a penny, here you go. And then and it would be gone. It's not like it was still there the next day because whenever you got wart, you go see your grandma. So, I have a penny for my warts.
That sounds almost as silly. When I was a young kid, I probably would have been, it was after my car accident, so I might have been 8.
Final pause. If you've got a message on your heart and want to be our guest, don't be shy. We'd love to hear from you. Visit forwardwalkingchoices.com, scroll to the Soulmates and Suitcases podcast section, and click apply here. Now back to the show.
This neighbor beside my grandfather, I got the hiccups really bad. And she goes, pull your ear 3 times and drink a glass of water. And you know what? That has worked every time I get the hiccups since I was 6.
Yeah.
And it's so bizarre, but it works.
Yeah. So there's lots of like body hacks that we've kind of forgotten or don't know about, or, they've been suppressed because you can't make money out of them. Quite a lot of the stuff that especially to do with pelvic health and things is things you can make money on, tablets or devices or pessaries or, all of these things can be used to help you manage your prolapses and issues going on with your body, but they should be seen as something temporary, not something long term, while you learn different ways to help manage your symptoms or your health. Yeah.
And have lots of things. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, babe.
Have lots of things that you noticed, like that we often do on our computers, sitting around a lot, maybe our diet, the crunched over, looking at our phones, so like all of those things are contributing to the pelvic floor issues.
Yeah, so posture's massive. So the majority of people who have pelvic floor issues, they know about it. Their brain knows about it way before they actually know about it. And their body starts to compensate and do cool, clever things, which aren't so cool and clever, but it's your body managing it as best it can. So one of the things that starts to happen is you start to tuck your tailbone under and start to tuck your bum under. And I can see women walking down the street and I'm like, oh, they've got an issue because their bottoms suddenly disappear and they become really flat because and their back stops having a nice natural curve in it. It starts to become quite flat. And so you see a flat back, no bottom, and I'm like looking at going, oh, she's got issues going on with her pelvic floor. So that and it's like an instinctive pattern. So then everything becomes too tight. So posture patterns like that, also just sitting at a desk, we're very we're very two-dimensional. We're on Zoom or we're sitting at a desk. And nowadays, cars even, they have their reversing things in front of you. Like I said, my brother-in-law's like top of the range car. And you don't even have to look in a mirror, you know? It's just there in front of you, everything that's going on round about you. So we stopped being able to do rotation and move in any different way except on one plane of movement. And this becomes really negative for pelvic floor health because our bodies need to be able to, you know, step off a curb or walk backwards sometimes, or, you know, so it's about varying our movement. Even back in the 1980s, there were like physiotherapists like Françoise Mazure and Philippe Souchard in Europe who were talking about, I mean, Françoise Mazure was in the 40s actually, who were talking about how habitual movement patterns create tension in the body. And that tension in the body then makes the rest of the body compensate. And that's when you start to have pain. So pain doesn't necessarily come from the area where you're feeling the pain, but it's a compensatory pattern for tension that you've built up because we're not varying our movements enough. So I think the biggest lesson is that we should be trying to do as varied movement patterns as we can. So whether that's walking and swimming, or whether that's cycling and walking backwards sometimes, or, you know, or whether it's doing just dancing in your kitchen for half an hour a week, you know, so that you're actually moving your body in lots of different directions.
Yeah. Yeah, we have I'll say a walking path around our house, like literally around our house. And Scott doesn't really see me because I'm not in his vision, but like one side of the house, I'll walk one way sideways, and the other next side, I'll walk the other way. And then the next way I'll walk backwards. And then the next, like it's because I'm finding for myself that balance is actually becoming an issue. And so I'm kind of like, I need to do something about that. So I'm going to practice the breathing while I'm doing that as well.
So sit to stand for you as well, Lisa, like for balance and things, like actually starting on quite a high thing and sitting to stand. So nose over toes. And as you come back down, making sure as you come back down that you're not tucking your tailbone under, that you're actually sitting straight back onto your chair is the absolute best. Do you know what I mean? Yes. And then what you do is you lower the surface that you're sitting on. So you get lower and lower and lower so that you want to continually be able to get up to stand and sit down without tucking your tailbone under. So it becomes more and more like a squat that you're going into each time. Okay. And then when you get good at that, you do it single leg. So you start with one leg just tapped on the floor and you come up through one leg. I mean, this is massive for my ladies who are my age and above, you know, because I'm 53 this year. And so, I was like, I've got ladies who come to me who are in their late 40s who can't get off the toilet without putting the hand down, you know. So this is all to do with pelvic floor health because your pelvis is the center of you. It's your balance, it's your locomotion, it's your breathing, it's for sex. So it's for fun as well. You know, it's for all these different things. And if we can't mobilize ourselves, like walking forwards, backwards, sideways, sit to stand, then we're really going to start struggling.
Yeah, that is one little tip I learned a couple of weeks ago, the nose over the toes.
Nose over toes.
Yes, for getting up and down. So we could probably talk for another hour. You could probably do a full exam on both of us.
I've done an hour already. Sorry, guys.
No, it's been amazing. Sorry, Scott, I had to mute you there just because the sound was really rustic. So go ahead.
We're shaking through that round two.
Sorry, say that again.
Round two.
Round two.
Round two of another podcast.
Yes.
This is for the world.
Exactly. Yeah. So we're coming to the end. So where can all our listeners who are now like wowed by all this information, where can they reach out to find you, Abby?
It's really, they can just look for Hypopressives Scotland. So Hypopressive and then Scotland, and they'll be able to find me. And on Instagram, I'm just Abby _hypopressive, and you can find me there too. And I'm trying to be better on LinkedIn, but I'm terrible at it. And I write tons of blog posts. So I've got tons of blog posts as well on my website if people want to read a little bit more about pelvic issues and pelvic health as well.
Well, hypopressive is very impressive. So it's a lot. I learned a lot today, and I think Scott did as well. And I know our
Good.
audience definitely will learn a lot today. So we'll remind our audience, thank you very much, Abby, and we'll remind our
Thank you,
audience,
guys.
our listeners, that if they really enjoyed this conversation today, to make sure that they leave a review and to share this episode with other
Sure.
people who, you know what, this, like you just said, it affects many people, both women and men.
Yeah.
So share, because this is very important information. And for those who are looking again for finding more of our episodes, we're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and as well truefans.fm. And for anyone as well looking to find Scott and I, you can find us at forwardwalkingchoices.com. Thank you again, and I'll say thank you very much from Thailand. I'll say kapun ka. I'll say thank you. That's very much. Thank you. And Scott, you're on mute. I don't know if you want to say a quick goodbye.
Thank you very much. From Canada, we kind of say, have a great day.
It's
Okay?
been great.
Gotta run. Bye.
Thank you, guys.
Looking for more inspiration around healing, love, growth, and possibility? If you've got a message
You
on
can
your
explore
heart
our
and
books
wanna be
at
our guest, don't be
payhip.com/Lisa
shy.
Scott
We'd love to
Brearley
hear from you.
authors.
Visit
And if today's episode meant
forwardwalkingchoices.com,
something to you,
scroll
we'd
to
love
the
for you to
Soulmates and
follow the
Suitcases
podcast,
section
share it with
and
someone you
click
care
apply
about,
here.
or join our
Now back to
Soulmates
the
and
show.
Suitcases community online. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you next time.